Hello and welcome to Loot Level Chat, episode 19. My name's Adam Cook and I'm here with Chris White and Lyle Pendle. How are you both?
I am magnificent.
Yeah, amazing as always. You know how we are. We're just always brilliant, 100%.
Don't be too upbeat given the news that's broke this week.
This is not why we're doing amazing.
No. We were doing something a little bit different this week. We like to do sort of not themed pods, but this week we're going to talk about some sort of. It's I suppose a cliched phrase to say hidden gems, but they kind of are in some respects. Like
the
because
more games that fall underneath the radar when these other big releases kind of take their thunder a bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're not one of them's quite a big publisher, but it just never seems to get any recognition. And we've all played it, so we'll talk about that. And spoilers to come. It's Kunitsu-Gami. But generally speaking, a lot of these are smaller games, as Chris says, that we either didn't get a chance to talk on the podcast. We did review, but generally speaking, the broader industry has not ignored as much, but like you get it. Games like Death Stranding 2 overshadow everything. Games like launches like the Switch 2 overshadow everything.
Yeah.
And it happens. But before we get into that, we'd like to talk about a bit of news. So we thought we would have just a very brief discussion, and it won't be the most in-depth because we don't have any behind-the-scenes information. But Xbox has had a bit of a week, hasn't it? To put it mildly.
It's exploded a bit, hasn't it? And lots of people are very affected.
Yeah, I've not seen a specific number, but a huge amount of the workforce has apparently been. I mean, when it's a the bigger the company, 1% is going to be big, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it is by all accounts, thousands of people have been affected by job losses and studio closures. And I guess the most sort of game-related thing to discuss about that is that Perfect Dark has been cancelled, and I think the studio that was making it has been shut down.
Yeah.
Also, Everwild has been shut down. I think people have also left Rare that have been there a while. The Perfect Dark one especially was kind of like I was actually, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm the only one and that's why, but I was kind of looking forward to it based on that trailer, which is apparently not really anything. That trailer, have you seen this?
Yeah, I saw something about how it was sort of some sort of weird piece together, not really the game. Like, just get something out of their job.
Does beg the question of why, though, or unless it was to gauge hype and see whether it was worth advancing the project, so to speak. But it doesn't matter now, does it? But
I mean, no. But it's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's one of those things where I think when they announced there's a new Perfect Dark coming, people were like, okay, what the hell's that going to be? Because, in this day and age, it was like there was one really weird, not very good Perfect Dark game and one Perfect Dark game, which was, back so long ago that it doesn't even really resemble what shooters are nowadays, So it's kind of like, I was definitely intrigued to like, well, what do you do with that? And like, obviously it was a big deal in terms of this is going to be a big, high budget, impressive game from this big new studio, like pushed in that regard. And then they for a while, this wouldn't feel like it had been that big a deal if it wasn't for that one trailer, because before that it was like, well, we've seen nothing of it. You talked about it years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was one of those where it was like, it could have so easily been like, oh, this just sort of vanishes away because you've not really thought about it for a while. And then it wasn't really that long ago that they showed this big, impressive, exciting trailer for it, which, apparently not necessarily.
Well, I wonder if there's this is one of those where there's a bit of a disconnect, because I think among people like us, and this is absolutely, by the way, no slight upon a studio that makes a game like Call of Duty, because apparently, by the way, their studios, the cuts are kind of like, to list them all off of what's been reported would take longer than we've got, and it does appear that kind of everyone's been hit at some fashion or another. But the reason I mentioned Call of Duty is because during the Xbox showcase during SGF, I think we actually talked about it on the podcast. I thought initially the trailer was for Perfect Dark, the closing one, and it ended up because of the butterfly and the weird sort of tech aspects, and it ended up being Call of Duty. And I think that there's this weird disconnect between, the three of us might play and even enjoy a bit of Call of Duty, but we don't come away from a showcase going, God, did you see that Call of Duty trailer? Because it's not, we're not the populace of the world, we're the populace of the bubble, aren't we? A little bit. So whereas someone like me was like, oh, Perfect Dark, wow, they're closing the they're not. Okay, yeah, of course it's not Perfect Dark closing the thing, of course it's Call of Duty, oh my God, how did I forget Activision was owned by Xbox? So there's that weird sort of, do you know what I mean? The bubbleness of it. But I do think Perfect Dark was, it's a known brand. I guess it hasn't been since, the 360 had the one for launch, didn't it?
It did, yeah. So, like, literally the launch game of a console that was, multiple generations ago at this point. Like, I was in school when that came out.
Wow. Yeah, okay. That's but, like, also, there was lots of other rumours knocking around because another game that did similar in terms of this really cool-looking trailer that there's now, it was State of Decay 3. And I haven't actually caught up on anything, but I don't believe I think that's still happening.
I think so. Yeah, I've not seen that. That's, yeah. I mean, check. It depends when you're listening to this. Check your news feeds yourself, just in case.
I mean, I think the one that I'm sad about it, but I just genuinely felt I never knew enough about it. Everwild is another one that I think people are a bit upset because of people behind it, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I always remember as a kid thinking of Rare as being this company that were like my favorite game company pretty much at the time. Like, I remember as like an actual like primary school child saying like, one day I'd love to work for Rare. Like, literally that was my like and it's a totally different thing nowadays, obviously. Like, it's not, we can't really compare those companies even before the layoffs and this decision and stuff, but it always is one of those where I think there's just a lot of people out there who have that special connection to that company for making some of their like favorite games ever, and that is a fair reason to feel that way, like.
Yeah,
I get it, but
this whole thing feels to me it speaks to a sort of broader problem at the moment, and I do think the games industry as a whole is it's not so much, I don't want to say that phrase of like the bubbles burst, but there's always been a lot of money in the games industry, but it sort of doesn't often seem to funnel to always the correct places. And it does feel
ain't that life.
Yeah. Well, ain't that life, yeah. But it does very much feel like there's I mean, look at the layoffs. It's not like Xbox they're not like, oh my God, I can't believe a company's laid off. Like, this is not new in the industry. Layoffs are happening a lot. And you only have to, and not just in development, all across the industry. Like, it is it's become a bit of a brutal thing to work in that respect in a lot of ways. So I guess, I mean, like I say, we don't have any insight specifically into the Xbox stuff, but it is worth, shouting out to wish everyone well and, hope that they all fall on their feet, because at some point we've probably played a game that they've made and have enjoyed, I would bet, most of these people.
Probably loads of games that they've made, for, like, realistic. Like, I was reading about people, like, and like a big thread on social media about different people who'd been laid off, and there were like literally people who like worked on the original StarCraft and things. Like, like people who are literally like as veteran as someone could get in this industry, where like, it's like, well, we're making layoffs, and I guess, we're having to drill up the numbers here, so there's clearly like, I guess, a lot of ridiculous talent
there is, and I guess it hurts particularly a lot more in terms of certainly culturally when you see that, like, they're making record profits and stuff, and it's like that sits poorly. Like, the messaging's all off, but like, again, I think as you said, ain't that life? The people at the bottom get kicked a bit further down like a can down the road, and the people at the top just get that little bit richer. And
I'm sure plenty of us know how that feels on many levels.
Oh yeah. It feels, it'd be nice to not be that can, but for a little bit, it's been kicked down the road, wouldn't it?
Well,
but like it is, it's really sad, and it's especially on the back of like what feels. I mean, June feels like the celebration of games, doesn't it? To then July to start this way feels like, well, you've had your fun. We're back to the doom and gloom now. But that's another reason we thought that this week, we would try and talk about some hidden gems, because some of the games are made by smaller teams, and it, like us, I guess, smaller teams, and it makes sense to try and, shout them out a little bit. This isn't going to work too well, because the first game I want to talk about is not made by a smaller team, but it is a game. Well, in fact, let's leave that one till last. Let's talk about one, right, that is definitely made by a smaller team and a smaller publisher. Let's talk about Into the Restless Ruins, Lyle, because that is definitely what I would consider a smaller game, yet it is available on, I believe, Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, and I don't believe I've seen any hype around it aside from us talking about how great it is.
It is a really, really cool game. It's sort of like, it's a it's got a lot of, you could throw like 100 words at this game to describe it. You can have like, your roguelike, your deck builder, your survivors like auto battler, all these different things. Like it's sort of like you get all these cards at the start of each sort of round of the game, and you're trying to build this ruins to get to like a certain point where there's a boss. So you'll have different shaped rooms, and these give you different buffs that'll improve how you manage while you're in the dungeon. And then once you've like played your sort of like energy, your resource for the turn with your cards, you jump down into the ruins, and you're just like a little character wandering through the ruins, and you auto attack with a weapon when enemies are close, sort of like how Vampire Survivors works. And in the ruins, you sort of have to try and find, different things that will help upgrade your deck and improve your power so that you get stronger and stronger and can make it through further and further, basically. And it's such a fun game. It's such a clever idea of how all these things meld together. The way they meld is really like, it's what makes it special, because there's just like all these mechanics feel like they're these different parts of games that I love, and they all work really well together and like fuel each other alongside that. And it was a game that I just had a lot of fun with. It has a lot of heart. I think the people making it were kind of have been doing this thing where they try and make games that are sort of smaller in scale, and where they sort of like put the effort into be like, this is like a year turnaround. It's going to be smaller in scale. We'll sort of, sell it for less, but we'll, it's not just risking everything and being one of those studios. So it's kind of works in that, that regard of like, staying safe in the industry, I guess.
That it came to my attention personally because the publisher is Wales Interactive, which is a company we've, as a team, covered quite a lot of. Usually, and I believe they are actually going back to this genre, usually sort of behind FMV games.
Yeah, very FMV heavy. They've made hundreds of them, I swear.
Really, if there's a team out there, I would say pushing FMV games still, it's Wales Interactive. But this is developed by Ant Workshop, as you mentioned, and this is nothing like that. It couldn't be...
Nothing like that at all. No, not even close. You'll not have any real actors sort of acting cheesily in this game.
No. It's worth mentioning, by the way...
What kind of... excuse me.
Got an ant in your
kind
throat
of
there.
like... Yeah, I have. What kind of like setting is it? Fantasy, sci-fi?
It's like dungeon crawling, isn't it?
It is, but it's Scottish Gaelic folklore.
I forgot about that stuff. Yeah.
Right. Sold.
Yeah. So it's
love
really
this.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know the weird thing about this game? And I don't know if Lyle, if you remember, we had this discussion. Is that it came. Well, the game itself didn't, but we got really early access to it. The game came to us at a time where Blueprints had not long either just been out or something like that. So. And in Blueprints, the way you are building the rooms, like you're picking the rooms, this actually does that as well, except so that you get like a deck of cards, and each card is like a room or a corridor. So it was really weird that it's almost like that thing of sometimes you feel like games all seem to come along and use similar ideas at the same time. Like it's the hotness, and this does that, but it's also, as you said, like a roguelike. It's also Survivors-like. And I'd forgotten totally about this sort of Gaelic stuff. It's also worth mentioning, the reason I was going to say this is it's currently 20% off on Steam. I don't know if it will still be that, but it's £10, $10.39. Yeah. And it's just had an update called the Ruin Remix Update, which adds, I'll read it here, these levels unlock when a player has reached player level 10, because you have persistent stuff as well, although it is a roguelike, obviously. There's 7 new room cards, new trinkets, new boons, new charms, loads of balance changes. It's genuinely a really good... If you like, I find if you like games like Vampire Survivors, where like you know when you sit down and you have that thing of like, I want to play something, but I don't really want to sit and play like a 2-hour session of an RPG or this. I just want something that I can just quickly jump into and have a good bit of a bash on, and somehow you end up losing those 2 hours anyway. Into the Restless Ruins is really that kind of game, in my opinion.
I totally agree with that, and it's one of those games sort of similar again, but still totally different in that there is just a lot to it where you can play it over and over again. Like there's things like you can sort of score chase on each of the individual sort of stages where by adding these different like modifiers and stuff to change how things work, and there's all sorts of little things where it's one of those games where if you fall in love with this game and you want to play it a lot, you can play it a lot. Like I remember because for the preview, I think we had access to the full game, but it was like the first 2 levels or something like that. And I played the first 2 levels, but I played them like 5 times each with different modifiers and leveling up and stuff because I was just like really loving it. I didn't want to stop playing.
Another game we can move on to slightly, and that we can move on to now is actually coincidentally another game that is also on sale. I'm looking at Steam at 25% off. Chris, you reviewed it. I didn't know this about it, or I forgot this, because just quickly looking at the Steam description for the Midnight Walk, from the minds behind Lost in Random.
Yeah.
I did not know that, or if I did, I completely forgot it. And it makes sense now I look at the visuals. Talk to us about this, because this is an interesting one, because it's like playable on it's PlayStation and PC. £25 it's on sale on Steam, but it's also VR if you want it. But this is a different one. This is a very different game.
It is a very different game, and it's a very unique game. I think, like, we've had Harold Halibut, the stop motion.
Yeah.
So it's like it's all claymation or stop motion that's then been digitally on a computer and made into a game, and it's a lot of people were comparing it to Tim Burton because obviously it's claymation and it looks a bit spooky, but it's so much more than that. It's you wake up in this world and it's just pitch black. There's no light. You've just arrived, and this weird creature gives you eyes that you put in, and then you can see. And then you realise this world, something really horrible's happened here. And you're just kind of wandering around, not really knowing what's going on. But at the same time, you're also like amazed by how beautiful this game looks like. I said in the review, it's one of those games that's just not a lot of the time. Like, obviously, games these days, a lot of them have great visuals one way or the other, whether it's photorealism or pixelation or whatever. But there's something special about this. Like the world is so dark and grimy, but there's also like a weird beauty to it. And you meet this little creature called Pot Boy, and at first he's like terrified of you. Yeah,
that's
at first he's terrified of you because he doesn't know you, and so he runs off, and you have to kind of follow him, and you realize that he likes to eat coal, and you give him some coal, and you start to build this friendship with him.
Listen, we all get the munchies when we've had it.
We do, yeah. a bit of pot.
Does anyone call it pot anymore? Is that a thing?
I don't know. It's just called the ganja, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
Is that the nomenclature of the day? I hope so.
But yeah, it's kind of like you then use light and fire. Fire basically is like the currency in this game. You use it to light the way, you use it to solve little puzzles. There's a lot of environmental puzzles. But at the same time, you're trying to evade these really messed up looking, horrible, because it's stop motion, the way they kind of move, it's really unsettling. And you've like got to hide in these wardrobes that are scattered around to avoid them. And then there's other mechanic that you use where you close your eyes so the screen goes black, and then you, by turning in the dark, you can hear certain noises that you wouldn't be able to hear normally.
This is one of those games, if I recall, I played a very small amount. I got a funny feeling when you start it says like, we really recommend you put headphones on for this, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
I've got a funny feeling it's like one of those games. There's not many games do that, but warn you wear headphones.
Yeah, exactly. And by doing that, you'll find certain items or certain clues or certain pathways. And then there's another thing where you see like a glowing eye on like walls or objects, and then you close your eyes whilst looking at them, reopen them, and then the path's completely cleared, so you've got a new route. So the world's always changing. It's a very creative game, and it's filled with a lot of heart as well because of the story. There's like these weird shells you can find, and you listen to them, and they explain a bit of the world, but it's quite messed up, the audio, and it's just it was a big surprise because I was expecting to like it because I love that kind of game, the kind of visuals, but the story's a bit more. There's more to it than I thought there was going to be, and I just really enjoyed it. It's a really good game, and if it is in the sale, then absolutely give it a go.
It sounds like one of them games that's difficult to talk about because so much of it is discovery and story that you have to talk around it
yeah,
all the time.
it is.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay, it's no problem. We can move on to. Well, this is one I haven't played and definitely won't be playing for nothing to do with the quality of the game, but I do believe Chris White will be interested in what Lyle has to say about a series, which is basically think started in this year, come out of nowhere, and guess what? This is genuinely coincidence. It's on sale. Brokenlore Low is on sale for 20% off at $5.99, and the Brokenlore Low and Don't Watch bundle is 20% off at a tenner. Ghost Frequency was that same studio, wasn't it? Because they've got a bundle.
Yes, it was. They've done 3 games this year.
That bundle is called Freaky Things, and that's £13 for all of them. Now, the reason I say that bundle them all together a little bit is because from what I remember reading your reviews, they're quite short. So Brokenlore games from Serafini Productions, Steam owned.
Yeah. Yeah, they're basically these short form horror games, and they I think there's sort of supposed to be connections between them that we're not properly seeing yet, unless we maybe find like hidden stuff. Which I kind of need to delve into a little bit. But they're these short form horror games that last like an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe. So, usually it's like one sitting, play it on a dark night and just, freak yourself out a lot. But like, they're just these really they're gorgeous looking, by the way. Like, they're like.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about that. I'm sorry. I know I haven't played it, but obviously I edit the reviews. And when I was sourcing screenshots from this, some of them look like you say, like almost like photoreal, unbelievable, and then there's like these weird. Some of them seem to have like almost like a.
Both of them so far have had sort of weird, like 3D pixely.
Yes.
Weird,
so I almost had to come to you and go like, sorry, which one of these is the game? Because these look like very different games. I tell you what, I just accidentally had the trailer play on Steam and shat myself because it starts with a breaking glass. So if anyone watching the video saw me just something like that when I was talking, it's because literally. I was looking at the screenshots to try and sort of somehow prove my point, which I can't do to you because you can't see my screen. But glass broke and horror started happening, so I'm going to close that window before it happens again. But yeah, so it is the overall game then is genuinely like
that's it's practically photorealistic quality. Yes, it is. They're like really impressive looking. Have some really cool monster designs, and a lot of them are to do with like sort of like traditional like Japanese folklore things that I hadn't. But like not like the ones you've heard of before, very much like things I had never had any knowledge of whatsoever. But the first game, Low, is about you're like a singer who has been called to go to like this tiny village to do an audition for an incredibly creepy seeming like manager guy, and it goes very badly and you're trapped there, and spooky things will start to slowly happen. You'll get unnerved to the point of them being, pretty
Someone
terrified.
Might break a window, and that's it. You've got to stop playing because you've shit yourself completely.
Because you shit
podcast.
Yourself. Yeah, that sort of thing. And then Don't Watch, which was I think the more recent one, is like you're sort of like a shut-in who only plays games, and you're. And bit of might hit a bit close to home for some.
We've got meta. Seraphine, you've gone meta on us already.
But you're sort of you're in your apartment, and you're sort of.
I'm literally watching the trailer as you're talking about it.
And they're just like, they have such great monster designs, such great scares. They're like the perfect length to just be like, it's like instead of watching a movie one night with like my husband, it's like, should we play this horror game instead? And they're priced accordingly. Like you'd spend more than that on a movie in a lot of places. You know what I mean? Like it works perfectly as that sort of alternative to that. And it's just really impressive. Like watching this series grow even through these 2 games, it's been really impressive to see. And the trailer for the next one, which is out sometime in autumn, that looks
is
even
it another
better than
Brokenlore game in autumn?
Yeah, another Brokenlore. Wow. I think is it Unfollow? I think it's Unfollow.
Oh yeah, I think I remember the initial. And do you know? I was going to say something about these that really stands out, and Chris, like this will speak to you. I think is that but both you and Lyle like sort of share the do the lion's share of you do all of the horror games on Loot Level Chill, and something that I pick up on from reading them and editing them is that the thing about horror games is that you enjoy them because of the tension and that obviously that they create, but quite often in a horror game, and this is coming I say from editing and reading both of you, is that a game can still be a good horror game, but you're sort of it's not actually scary. Because it's like anything. I watch a lot of football. When something mad happens, like an incredible goal, it stands out because it's different from the norm. And something I picked up on from both, I think both the Brokenlore games, Lyle, is these actually did get to you. Whereas I've read horror reviews from you where you're like, I enjoyed it, it was good, but it wasn't like shit your pants scary. Whereas these both seem to have that element, which is harder and harder to do, imagine.
Not only do these two both have that element, but if we're just briefly mentioning their other game this year, Ghost Frequency, that's like the scariest game I've played in years. That game like fucked me up.
What without spoiling, what I mean, and this is a question to both of you. What does it need? What does a horror game need to actually get that from you? Because even Silent Hill 2 got to me, and that's a remake of a game I have played, but there were moments where like I have to stop. It's just, for me, it's tension. But
yeah, I think I kind of agree in that it being tension, but I think because horror is something I've played like as much as any other genre, really. Like I've played a lot of horror over the years. Like it's like you say, it is harder to come by, but when something's a bit more interesting and done in a bit of a different way, I find it works really well. I think that's what helps about these short form horror games as well, because when you have to stretch a horror game to being like 10 hours long, you like I would generally find with a lot of other horror games I played, it'd be like the first hour was really scary and then I sort of know what is going on. Do you know what I mean? Like it'll be, but when you've got a horror game that's only a couple of hours long, it's basically that whole time is that.
And what about you, Chris? What is it?
It's the anxiety. Like the horror genre, like I watch a lot of movies because
you both watch horror movies.
This is going to sound really like, I don't want to bring the mood down, but when it comes to like when you're on tablets for something, like you tend to struggle to feel a lot. So I watch a lot of horror movies because it gives like I want to feel something. And like with horror games,
we shouldn't laugh.
No, we both know we shouldn't. But to be fair, I also know what he means exactly because I also take tablets. So I'm like, I know what I mean. Yeah, I get it. I 100% get it.
So I struggle with horror games. It's more for me. It's more about what they do, because you get a lot of horrors that you throw away because they try and throw like pointless jump scares at you or whatever. But for the last few years, it's been a hell of a lot of horror games.
Broken glass.
That does it. No matter what.
Yeah. There's a lot of horror games the last few years that really tried to like push the boundaries and do something different, and not just throw a game at you where something jumps out at you and like there's just fucking gore everywhere. It's
we've been doing jump scares since Resident Evil, the dog through the window. Do you know what I mean? Like these,
And they can work really well as well. But if that's all you're throwing, like
literally, if people are watching, they have seen evidence of a jump scare working on this podcast, albeit on one of the weaker minded horror. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of horror. So is it psychological stuff then that like?
Yeah, it is. I don't know. I just like that tension at the start. That like the slow builds are always what gets me. That's what got me, especially with Ghost Frequency. That's like basically sort of like a ghost hunting in a house, and it's just noises and from peripheral sides, and for so long until you just sort of want to cry.
Yeah, that's the one genre that always terrifies me. Have you ever watched Hell House on Shudder?
No.
So Hell House is like a found footage horror film about basically involves like the supernatural, and the supernatural, any film with like potential ghosts or whatever.
Yeah,
it's what you can't see. That's the horror for me. It's what's not there, what you don't know is there, and that's what puts me on edge. And these games that you're talking about look absolutely incredible. I've just got to look at all three of them, and like, I'll definitely be getting them. Definitely.
I mean, the found footage stuff always. I think I get it, but like for me, that's lost its effect slightly because like, I think back to the Blair Witch days. Do you know when the internet was less prevalent, and you're like, sorry, is this actually real or what? Like you genuinely were like, it can't be, but also, is it? Do you know what I mean? And now it's like, unfortunately, the internet's made a lot of that stuff.
There's a lot. There's a lot of films.
Another trailer's just played. What is going on? Fucking hell. What? Sorry, another trailer just started blaring randomly in my ears, and again, I'm not making this up. Sorry, Chris, what were you saying?
That's all right. I'm just saying, like, found footage, there's a lot of films out there that do the genre still very well.
Okay, I mean, again, I'm not the guy
I still remember like 15 years ago seeing the first Paranormal Activity at the cinema and then walking home like,
yeah, I was the same.
That's the mark of a good film, right?
I had to when back in the day when it was all like print, like not digital as it is now, because I work in a cinema, I had to view Paranormal Activity on my own. And I remember walking home and I had to leave the light on. It was that terrifying to me.
Have you ever seen the Key and Peele sketch?
No.
Of like they've just been to see a film and they're both trying to act like, yeah, I'm not scared, and then they end up like one of them leaps into the other one's arms and gets carried because it's like, no, hey, is as if anything would come out of the puddle or anything like that. No things are coming out of a puddle, and they both like walk round a puddle to go. It's a good one to watch that. Let's move on then, I suppose, to the next trailer that's jumped out at me. I don't know why it's doing it. Like normally when you just click on pictures of Sting, but for some reason it reverted back to the trailer and it just started going my headphones like. Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, is not an indie. It is not a small title by any means, but it is a small title for a publisher of Capcom's level. And the reason we're putting it down as a sort of hidden gem of this year is because it was a Switch 2 launch title. And Chris, you played through it on PS5 and previewed it it was like years ago now. It's a great video game. Yeah, it's really cool and different and interesting and like it just doesn't seem to get the love. And is it because it's not Resident Evil or not Street Fighter or not Mega Man even?
Yes.
You think so? Yeah. I mean, it's not Akami.
People just didn't play it. It was on Game Pass and everything.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It probably still is, isn't it? I don't know. I'd have to check.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that came out of nowhere for me. Like I remember seeing a trailer for it, and then you asked me about the preview in London at Capcom, and I went down not really knowing much about it, and afterwards being like one of my most anticipated. And when I finally got it, it's so smart. It does so much. You're doing constantly working hard every single level to do what you need to do to survive and open the next gate, the next Tory gate, and it's just really good. But obviously, Lars played it more recently, so
on Switch too.
What you say there, like that was what got me. What got me is like just how much is going on and how much it keeps evolving and keeps changing as you go. Like every time you get a new, because I early on, like in the first few hours, I was like, oh, I'll upgrade this unit fully because I'm excited about it. I think I'm always going to be using this. And then you just get things that just change the game constantly. Like I think all these different things and then different mechanics, like, having archers up watchtowers or having to turn lights on in caves and all these different things that just make every level feel so different. And then, I mean, the fact that it's sort of like tower defense / character action and how much that just means that that sort of passive gets a bit boring after a while element of tower defense just doesn't happen, instead it's like, no, I'm really getting stuck into this is great. And there's just so much to that game, and it's like I didn't want to put it down, and let me tell you, having that portably is good. I love having that on the Switch too. That's just it was such an easy pick it up. I'll go through a stage now. Again, oops, it was 3,
yeah,
it's very easy to pick up and just do a mission or two, like you say. And just the only thing I don't want to be negative here, but if you have played it before, I wouldn't be like, yeah, get that Switch 2 version, because really it adds mouse controls. And did you tried them, didn't you, Lyle, for the review?
I tried them and was like, why am I playing with a mouse? And then sort of quickly stuck them back on the console.
It sounds massively counterintuitive to play with a mouse.
It basically literally turns into mouse and keyboard. So but this is the thing. I shout at me if I'm wrong. I would find it hard to imagine even the most ardent of I play PC games only fan of games uses mouse and keyboard for a third-person game. I know people do with FromSoft games. I know that, but it basically, essentially, with the right Joy-Con gives you camera control, which is not really a huge deal in Kunitsu-Gami. Really, the camera control stuff. It's not
really
one of
something you ever think about, is it?
No. It's still great. It is. It does. The frame rate's good, and it, like you said, Lyle, superb in handheld and very, 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 very sort of suited to that. Oh, I just do a level or mission or But if you have played it before, I can't sit here and be like, definitely get Switch 2 version at full price.
The reason I loved having it on Switch 2 was because I hadn't played it before, and it was a great place to get to play it. And
but that's the thing, though. That's why I say this: is that if you have just got Switch 2 and you only really play stuff on Switch or Nintendo, absolutely cracking game, really really good. And I know it's Capcom and they're not some small publisher that needs our shout out, but it's just different. It's just a really different game. And, when publishers, a lot of them are sort of locking themselves into this sequelizing or new version of this, it is nice to see, Capcom are doing this. And Pragmata's another one from Capcom. They did it with, oh my God, what was that dinosaur shooting game? Exo
Primal. Yeah.
So there's that. So there's 4 sort of what we think hidden gems. And we're going to do a listener question of the week, which I'm just going to bring up to read now. And it's a very simple one. We've looked at what's happening right now in the news. We've looked back at what things we've played. So now this one's about looking forward. From Mikhail, he says, what are you looking forward most to playing in July? I'll give you a quick rundown, guys. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, July 11th. Patapon 1 and 2 replay, same date. Eric's Home, The Stolen Dream. The Wandering Village, Donkey Kong Bonanza, RoboCop Rogue City Unfinished Business is 17th of July, mid-month. Phantom Squad, Shadow Labyrinth, Wu Chang, Fallen Feathers. Then we get towards the end of the month. Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game. No Sleep for Konami date. Was it Date? I don't know. Date, yeah. From AI, the Somnium Files. That's all one name. Grounded 2, I forgot, is preview program on July 29th. And Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, which is going to be an interesting one because Chris previewed that. So I'm wondering if that's going to... Or anything else you know of that isn't on that brief list. Are we going to avoid saying the obvious one, or are someone going to go for it? Because it would be true.
I'm going to say Tales of the Shire.
As the game you most want to play in July?
Sorry, no, but we're trying to avoid the obvious one. I'm assuming we're talking Tony Hawk's.
Oh, okay. I was thinking more Donkey Kong. So Donkey Kong.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not. I know. But so Tales of the Shire, I previewed it. It was very it wasn't early build, but they obviously delayed it. But the best thing about Lord of the Rings is the Hobbits, and I've always thought, oh my God, how nice would it be to just live there without all the stress of modern life in this little environment, this little community, and just make food, eat a lot of food, just chill out in the sun, fish, do whatever, and then they make a game about it. And from the early build I played, I really liked it, and it's got the lore, but it's just really nice, and I kind of need that.
Honestly, the way you've described it, you've said it's Animal Crossing but Hobbitses. So you kind of if I'm honest, you've pretty much done some good marketing through there. Because I'm actually, yeah.
So yeah, I would say that and Tony Hawk's, obviously, because I just remember playing that as a kid, and we all loved the remakes of the Pro Skater 1 and 2. They were perfection. And then
it would be shocking if it was bad, right? If it wasn't,
it won't be.
It'd be good.
And then I'll just say finally, Ragebound, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound was so cool. It was so cool. How
hard was it? We should say you played it. You can read this on lootlevelchill.com. There's a preview of it. Because sometimes those sort of Ninja Gaiden games are known for being the difficult side of things.
They are, but they give you enough to combat that with some of the abilities. There's this one ability that you can help you one-shot enemies.
Because this is .emu, isn't it, as well? The Streets of Rage.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's making me they make good 3D, 2D.
There's so much going on. It looks amazing. And it's very fluid and very responsive, and that's what you need from that side scroller kind of game. So I would say that is my third.
Yeah. That looks great.
It does. Well, should we just say, Lyle, because if Chris is having one that's the obvious one for him, should we just say for us, Donkey Kong Bonanza obviously is our obvious one?
It's a nice obvious one to have there, yes. I think we're both probably most excited for that if we really listen to our true selves. Yeah, but there's a lot coming this month other than that too. It's also not hard to want to talk about the others. There's a bizarre Missile Command Tactics game we didn't mention.
Oh, Christ, that's soon, yeah.
In a week's time, Missile Command Delta. I can talk about that because I'm not playing it.
Yep.
So right now, so it's fine. Shadow Labyrinth looks cool as hell.
You nicked it. You took my.
I know. I'm sorry. I mean, we can both talk about it, but like, yeah, Shadow Labyrinth is just like a Metroidvania, but weird, dark Pac-Man.
Is the name gonna harm this game, given that it's coming out on a mid sort of Wu Chang, a mid Donkey Kong, mid a RoboCop game? Is because I keep forgetting the name of this game until it's written down, because I know it's Pac-Man related and a Metroidvania, which is like, okay, you are singing from my hymn sheet, but the name, I keep thinking Shadow Complex.
Yeah, I mean, I get why they've done it. It's like it's a dark version of Pac-Man. In Pac-Man, you're in a maze. It's a labyrinth. Yeah, it makes sense, but I get it sounds generic, doesn't it? It sounds generic.
Pac-Man Shadow Labyrinth, like Pac-Man : Shadow Labyrinth.
Yeah, or even Shadow Labyrinth - Pac-Man. You can even have Pac-Man at the end if you're desperate. But I just think that looks really cool.
Oh, it looks great.
So cool. I think that could be such a that could be on the next Sleeper Hits Hidden Gems thing we do in 6 months' time. And the other one I want to shout out, because I am actually, this is probably my actual second place for thing I want to be playing this month, that I can talk about anyway. Which is, I want to play Super Mario Party Jamboree Jamboree TV.
Yeah.
I didn't play that Mario Party game, even though I meant to, and I heard it was really good. And I'm going to be playing the new enhanced Switch 2 version instead, and I think that's exciting. Like, I don't necessarily know that all the new stuff they add is going to be amazing for 100%.
It'll all be new to you, won't it? But
it'll all be new to me, so that's exciting. And I've not played a Mario Party game in fucking ages, so yeah,
we've got to get some online going on that, I think. Well, in that case, I'm going to go for as well. I'm going to add RoboCop Rogue City Unfinished Business, because it's again, I think people keep thinking it's DLC. It's a standalone product. I think it's slightly cheaper, and that previous RoboCop game, RoboCop Rogue City, was like really fun and like a proper RoboCop power fantasy.
I remember
it wasn't
people saying that.
Yeah, it wasn't difficult or anything. It was just kind of like, it was more like the I don't know if people realize this, but some of the RoboCop stuff is really gruesome. Like, some of the early stuff in RoboCop is really kind of, like, I haven't seen Chris, you're big on your films, like the newer RoboCop films. I don't know if they do that, but the originals were quite not body. Well, they were kind of body horror in spots, like limbs blown off and brutal.
Yeah, they're pretty
gruesome.
Brutal. Yeah.
And this sort of channels that, like, you're walking along as RoboCop, like thud 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 with your machine pistol, whatever it's called, and just shooting them, and they just like go.
Oh yeah,
screen, like they are splatting. It's got called. Do you know? There was a spate or a period of time where you got these games. What's the term for them? Like, the Dishonored of the world. What do they call these games again? Something sim. Immersive sim, where you would be like, it has elements of those in them where you are like doing arrests as RoboCop, and it's kind of, and there's even one section in the first game where you are literally told, RoboCop, we need your help on the front desk, and you have to stand there and uphold the public justice by people coming to you with their problems and choosing dialogue options. And I know that sounds silly, and like, well, I don't want to do that. It's because it's so silly, campy fun. It's really good. And then, like you say, you're out on missions. It's not like this ultra difficult game where you need amazing, precise first person aiming, because you are just, for want of a better phrase, blatting people with a machine pistol. And recently they've put out a trailer, and they've sort of, they're not like this is a sequel, but they've iterated upon it with things they've learned, and I think it could be really good. I mean, the last one was really good, so there you go. We didn't even mention Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, and we've talked about it on the pod about 4 times, but I think it's become one of those things where we just hope it'd be good. And thank God he didn't ask about August, where Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is coming, Chris. It's close, mate. And of course, Game of the Year, Drag X Drive. We do need, right, this is apropos of nothing, someone at Nintendo needs to come out and tell us, is it Drag X Drive or Drag Cross Drive? Because that X
they
could
must have
mean
said
cross.
Surely they've said it in a Nintendo Direct or something. We need to just go back.
You say that, man, but the trailer they put out when they announced the release date was 29 seconds long or something, and it was like the least, it was like, okay, fine. But yeah, you're right, maybe they have. I'm going to go and look that up.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll know by next time we talk about it.
And by the end of August, we can have a nice little podcast special. We can do Shinobi Art of Vengeance versus Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, like retro off, 2D retro off.
Oh god, that looks amazing as well.
It does. But that's a podcast for this episode. Thank you to Lyle and to Chris. Just to mention, We are on Patreon, patreon.com/lootlevelchill. We do understand that not everyone wants to have monthly subscriptions right now. Times are tough. But if you've enjoyed this pod, or any of the pods, or anything we do, on the main website, lootlevelchill.com, there's a little link on every article that says, like, buy us a coffee. I mean, it's Ko-Fi, it's spelled, but, you know, coffee. And you can just help us out that way if you want. Follow us on the social media. Follow us on YouTube, where there is a video version of this. But most importantly, the Patreon, we will give you exclusive podcasts every week, which we have done since our inception. Every week we either do a listener correspondence thingy, which is what we're doing in a minute for that, or we do quizzes and all sorts of fun things. It'd be nice to have Chris on a quiz once to debut.
I'm waiting for that opportunity.
But we can't have him on because he'll beat us all. Thank you very much, lads, and we'll speak to you in the next episode or whenever you choose to listen. Bye bye for now.